Story 1. I can barely decide what I want for dinner. You want me to commit to over 20 years of caring for a person? No thanks. Story 2. I believe it is one of the most selfish choices a person can make. Ignoring the freedom that comes with being child-free for a moment, why would I want to bring another human being into a world where suffering is inevitable? I do not wish to subject anyone to the hardships of life, so having children is not something I desire. Story 3. Why do I need a reason? If I don't have the desire to be a parent, that's a good reason not to be a parent. Story 4. I do not have the mental capacity to care for another person and support them for the rest of their life. Story 5. I love working with children and being around them, but I'm too selfish to have any of my own. I prioritize my own needs and wants, and I know it's a negative trait, but I would rather acknowledge it than be a poor parent. Each detail I learn about pregnancy seems daunting and frightening. I know adoption is an option, but I'm sure it's an expensive and challenging process. I am happy to be the cool and fun aunt to my friends' children. Story 6. All my hopes and dreams for the future of the United States have fallen apart. I don't want to bring a child into this chaotic situation. My standards are high, but things could be much better. Story 7. I can barely take care of myself, let alone another person. It's too much work. I have schizoaffective disorder and don't want to risk passing it on to a child. I'm suggeste usmei. There are reasons. Story 8. I'm selfish. On Saturday, I want to go snowboarding or mountain biking, not change diapers and go to Little League. My vacations are international or involve large festivals like Electric Daisy Carnival and Burning Man. Disney sounds like the most miserable place on earth. Story 9. I am selfish, and the world we are leaving to the next generation will need generations to fix. Story 10. My parents are both the youngest in their families. My mother is the youngest of 7 siblings, and my father is the youngest of 12, including themselves. I grew up around cousins who started having children in their late teens and early 20s. During family gatherings, I noticed how exhausting children can be and how tired my cousins always looked. I enjoy playing with the kids, but I do not see myself taking care of one all the time. I am just not ready, at least not right now. Story 11. I disliked kids when I was 1 and like them much less now. I would be a terrible father as I am very much like my own father. Story 12. Autism. First of all, I need my peace, calm, and quiet. I wouldn't cope well with the responsibilities of parenthood and the many stressful moments of sleepless nights, crying, and other difficulties. I know parenting means sacrifice, but I would have to sacrifice my sanity. I know how that works out. My own mother wasn't fit to be a parent either, which messed up my entire childhood. I don't want the next generation to suffer from my becoming extremely depressed, as my mother did. Just like I inherited this from her, there's a chance I would pass on the gene. I don't want a child to suffer the same way I did. It would feel even worse to bring a neurotypical child into the world because I wouldn't be able to understand normal behavior. Luckily, I live in a country where you don't need to rely on children in your old age. There's financial security in the Netherlands, and when you need help, you can always get subsidized professional assistance. If I need help showering and getting dressed someday, I would get a district nurse. If I can't clean my home anymore, I would hire a cleaner. If I can't cook, there are organizations that bring healthy, freshly cooked meals to seniors. I'm 34 now, so I won't have to worry about that for a long time, but the fact that I won't be in trouble in my old age without children allows me to prioritize my own mental health now, making having children a choice and not a necessity, a choice that I would rather not make. Story 13. Humans are now aware that the urge to procreate is part of their inherent nature to continue the species. The world is overpopulated, so why would a logical and rational person choose to have children? It appears selfish given the current state of the population. Story 14. There was never a moment in my life where I thought to myself, hey, you know what would make this situation better? A baby. In response to those who question why some people do not want to play golf, what is their reason for not wanting to play? Story 15. I feel like the question should be, why do you want children? It's strange that we default to having children as the standard and not the unusual. that always confused me. It's not like we have to worry about replacement rates for the species or anything. There are plenty of us. Story 16. At first, when I was very young and learning about the challenges of pregnancy and the pain of childbirth, I wondered how anyone could put someone they love through that kind of suffering. If I love my wife, why would I do that to her? As the years went by, other reasons emerged. Foremost among them is listening to parents. Children can be difficult. An hour and a half of complaints cannot be erased by saying, "Oh, but it's all worth it." Being a child was tough. School is not enjoyable. You have no money, no freedom, and no autonomy. Assuming I liked my child, why would I want them to go through that? Why make my life more difficult just to allow someone else to suffer? Story 17. I am a very selfish person who battles mental health problems regularly. I neither feel the need to be a parent nor do I have the capacity to raise a child. I am content being an uncle to my girlfriend's 2 nephews. Story 18. I like money, time, and quiet. However, the biggest reason is that I don't think I should be responsible for another human being to that extent. Story 19. One of the most jarring experiences I had as a child was witnessing someone acting happy, positive, and funny one moment, and then completely hostile and frightening the next. I often blamed myself and tried to change in order to make them the happy person I admired. I never want to repeat that with my child. I want to be consistent and I'm too afraid to frighten them. Story 20. I haven't figured out how to create with myself yet. Have you actually met any kids? They are noisy, a challenge, expensive, and not very helpful. You're not even allowed to have them work anymore. Story 21. Just don't want any. There's no need for any other reason, just as people who want kids don't need any reason other than their desire to have them. Story 22. I have autism, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, social anxiety, and generalized anxiety. I do not do well with people who are overly touchy or needy, and being in a room with children causes me anxiety. I find children disruptive. They can be too loud, overly affectionate, and overly demanding. Their shows are unpleasant to listen to, and their screams and cries are unbearable. I cannot handle babysitting for more than 2 hours, and even then, it must be when the kids are asleep because I prefer not to have them near me. I would be the parent who works all the time and relies on the other parent to handle everything. Therefore, it is in everyone's best interest, especially my husband's, for me not to have children. Story 23. One sexual encounter does not have to lead to a lifetime of financial, emotional, and mental commitment to another person. Parenting is a commitment to a complete individual outside of yourself, who wants to take on the responsibility of another person and navigate their way through life while being financially responsible for them. Story 24. I like the idea of children, but I won't have them because I do not have the resources, time, money, or energy to raise them the way they should be raised. I would not want children unless I were extremely well off and able to raise them without schools or other institutions. Our government is chaotic, and our schools reflect that. Story 25. I feel that parenting is challenging these days. Everyone is critical about how you raise your child. A situation arose once when I was at the grocery store. A child was having a complete meltdown, crying, yelling, and flopping on the floor because he didn't have the yogurt he liked. The main issue was that his mother did nothing about it. However, I understand her perspective because if you grab or discipline a child in public, you may be perceived as a terrible parent. I don't think I could handle being the person with a crying child and feeling helpless. Additionally, I'm not sure how people manage to raise kids financially. Finding a babysitter at the last minute or having to miss an event because you couldn't find one seems overwhelming to me. Story 26. To me, children are a want versus a need. Do I want children? Sure. Do I need children? No. Right now, I can barely afford to take care of myself, and I won't let a child grow up worrying about my ability to support them financially. Story 27. Generally, I still feel like a child at times. I struggle to take care of myself and my dog, let alone another person. I am not consistent in my cleaning habits. I tend to let things pile up throughout the week and then binge clean on the weekend. That is not a suitable environment for a growing child. In my opinion, I have poor spending habits and make impulsive purchases of things I want but do not need. I can be selfish with my free time and prioritize my personal time above almost everything else. I like to be on my own 90% of the time, and having a child would mean I'd have barely any time to myself. I also have poor eating habits which would affect a child during and after pregnancy. Ideally, I want a child to be well-nourished and taught healthy eating habits, but I am not sure I am capable of doing that. Story 28. I don't think it would work for me. When you have a child, you need to be ready to put your own life and wants on hold for a long time. I'm in my mid-20s now and feel like I haven't truly lived. I want to experience life before I die. So I'm not ready for that kind of responsibility, and I doubt I will be in 10 years, as I feel I am lagging behind. I also haven't had a partner and can't see myself getting one. Even if I did, I'm too inexperienced in relationships to find a suitable partner to raise a child before getting too old. For that, you need good compatibility, and you can only understand what you want in a relationship through experience. I have considered raising a child as a single parent, but that thought quickly faded since I can't adopt as a single person, and pregnancy is not an option for me for various reasons. I don't feel that I could effectively provide for a child, both financially and emotionally, on my own. I also have some medical issues that, while not severe, are still restrictive in daily life. I'm generally not the most competent person when it comes to self-sufficiency. I can't do that to a child. Story 29. I used to want children. Then my nieces and nephews were born. I adore all four of them with every fiber of my being. I do anything and everything they want. I'm their aunt. However, I enjoy being able to go on spontaneous dates with my wife and not worry about kids. I appreciate having the freedom to do whatever I want on the weekends. I like being able to say, okay, I'm done now, and walk away to recharge. Does that make me selfish? Maybe, but those are my reasons. Story 30. I am too expensive as a person, and I am scared that I will be just like my parents, a bad parent. Story 31. I just got my own place, a well-paying job, and my mental health in order. I do not want to upset the balance. Story 32. I would have made a terrible parent. Honestly, I did not navigate adulthood very well, so parenting would have been a challenge. I am also glad not to have contributed to the world population that my generation will leave behind. Story 33. I think children require a significant commitment. If it is not an enthusiastic yes, then it is as good as a no. I have also never been a nurturing person. Will I watch my friends' children for a couple of hours and be the coolest aunt? Absolutely. And then I'm quite happy to hug them goodbye and return to my quiet, peaceful, independent life. Story 34. I feel like I already do. With two emotionally immature parents, I really just need a break. And I'm not willing to spend the rest of my life caring about another person. I'm trying to heal from my trauma, learn to self-regulate better, and enjoy life a bit more, which is something I was never really able to do. I also think that not everyone needs to procreate, and that's a stance I firmly support. People think it is so important to have biological children. I never thought so. I know that if I change my mind someday and feel healed and regulated enough, I am open to adoption. Story 35. The world is challenging, and I face struggles like financial difficulties and anxiety. I have many hobbies I want to pursue, and I care deeply for my 9 nieces. However, I do not believe it is ethical to have children at this time, while society faces significant issues and climate change will make life increasingly difficult for future generations. There are already children in need of a loving home. If I change my mind in the future, I will consider adopting. Story 36. I am the middle child labeled as the responsible one. Dealing with my younger brother since he was born has been enough. I did not enjoy the experience, and I do not have the patience to endure it again. I know how to care for someone, but I am not interested in being a father. I do not want to have that kind of responsibility. Story 37. I am horrified by pregnancy and childbirth. It has never really been on my radar. I feel awkward around children and become frustrated when overwhelmed. In my opinion, There are many factors that make me unfit to be a mother. I also worry about unintentionally impacting someone else's mental health. I am trying to break that generational cycle. Story 38. I would be a terrible parent, and my poor child would be traumatized and likely grow up to be a serial killer. I am so unfortunately bad with kids. Additionally, I also cannot get a date to save my life. I have never been in a relationship and have never even come close to one. I have no idea how people find each other and fall in love. I feel like an outsider. Story 39. I am not fond of children. They can be noisy and often display irresponsibility. I enjoy traveling, seeking peace and quiet, and having the freedom to do what I want when I want. Additionally, I have 2 hereditary medical conditions that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Story 40. I don't want to bring people into this world who may suffer like I did. I would never forgive myself. I also don't trust myself to raise children well enough to be the person they need to grow up as healthy individuals. I am afraid that I will pass on any genetic disability to them. Story 41. I enjoy relaxing on my days off and going straight home from work without needing to pick anyone up from a relative's house. I don't even want a pet since my sisters treat our parents like a daycare. Story 42. I have 3 children, and when it comes to people who do not want to have children, I fully support them if they are not ready or are afraid to, or if they believe that the world is not a safe place. As for myself, I have never regretted my decision. One thing I am sure of is that children are not a prerequisite for a happy life. It is not just about having children, but about prioritizing your life in order to raise a healthy, confident individual who will find their place in the world in the future. If you are not ready for this and do not want to make sacrifices, it is much healthier to think this way than to have children without changing anything in your life or to have them with the wrong partner. Ultimately, all your personal issues will affect your children in the long run. Story 43. I do not want to share my partner or my dogs. I have too much trauma to be a good mother. I do not have the patience for screaming or crying kids. The world is not a great place. They are overwhelming. I do not want to lose my autonomy. Essentially, once you become a mother, that is all you are, and that sounds like absolute hell to me. Story 44. I have bipolar disorder and met my then husband at 36. I didn't want to do it alone and risk negatively impacting my child, as I struggled with my mental health until my early 30s. Going off medication and not sleeping for 5 years would have been disastrous. He has autism and dislikes children, so combining those genes is not something I want to consider. Story 45. I don't have the resources to be responsible for children, nor do I want to spend my resources on them. Story 46. I have one beautiful son who is 6 years old, and he is all I need. I have been single for about 4 years because I do not want to bring another woman around him. I want him to have my full attention, as he has several half-siblings. At his mother's, he is fighting for love, but with me, he receives all my love. It would be wrong to have another child, as I will always love him the most, regardless of what anyone says. That is simply the truth. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.